Since you guys asked, this part came out early. Wakey, wakey, hoodie. Naruto's eyes groggily opened and he felt cold metal on his chin, forcing him to crane his head up to meet the owner of the voice. The first thing he noticed was the tall man's bleached white skin and messy green hair, then his deranged purple eyes which seemed to swirl with insanity locked onto his electric blues. The man's purple jacket and pants were filled with creases and crinkles as he held a metal crowbar to his chin. But what creeped Naruto out the most was the man's ruby-red lips, which was outstretched to a wide, permanent grin, showing yellow unsightly teeth. Naruto struggled to move only to find he couldn't, feeling his hands held tightly by thick rope. The man seemed to notice his peril and giggled, "Oh, don't mind me, just keep struggling. It's more fun this way," the man urged the blonde. Naruto snarled behind his helmet, his blue eyes staring right back into the man's purples. "Screw you!" Thunder boomed angrily outside. For the first time, Naruto took in his surroundings. He was in a warehouse, judging by the many crates and boxes that were stacked on top of each other. One light source dangled above him as he was forced to kneel. The man looked amused by his response. Removing the crowbar from Naruto's chin, he walked around the bound blonde, circling him. "That's the spirit. You're a natural rebel," he praised, "not that it'll do you any good." The man trailed off. Immediately after that, the man cracked Naruto on the face with the crowbar, hard, sending the blonde skidding away a few feet. "Oh, that looked like it really hurt," the man mocked. Naruto stood up wobbly, only to get hit by the crowbar once more, sending him down to the ground. "Hoop, now hang on, that looked like it hurt a lot more." The man played with the metal crowbar in his hands as he watched the boy struggle once more. "Now, let's try to clear this up, okay, pumpkin?" He raised the crowbar above his head. "What hurts more? A?" And brought it down harshly upon the blonde. "Or B?" He stuck the boy again. "Forehand, another strike. Or backhand?" By now, the black crowbar was stained red by Naruto's blood. Naruto collapsed on the floor and coughed up blood, the crimson liquid dripping down his chin and onto the floor. Even as his body screamed in pain, he tried to say something. The man noticed Naruto's lips move, and frowned before crouching down and put a hand to his ear. "Yeah, what's that?" "A little louder, Blondie, I think you have a collapsed lung that always impedes the oratory," he said, ruffling the blonde's hair. In response, Naruto spit a wad of blood on the man's chin, which caused him to frown and brought the blonde's head down on the ground. He huffed, taking out a napkin and cleaned the blood on his chin. "Now that was rude. People I tortured before were polite, and when I say polite I mean them begging down on their knees for mercy." Naruto only grinned, his teeth bloody. At this, the man cracked a smile as his eyes looked at the blonde. "Looks like I have to teach you some manners." He paused and shrugged. "Nah, I'll just keep on beating you with this crowbar." With that, he proceeded to beat the blonde without mercy or remorse, laughing cruelly as he did. A while later, Naruto looked on the verge to pass out in any second, his eyes dropping every second as his body swayed left to right. The man cupped the blonde's chin with a grin before kicking him. "Oh, don't pass out now. What happened to all that bravado from earlier?" Naruto didn't answer. The man grinned. "Strap in, boy, because we will be here for a bit," he sing-songed. He started giggling, which turned to full-blown laughter as thunder boomed once more. Naruto shot up from his sleeping bag with a gasp. Sweat covered his face and his hair was in a mess. He wiped the sweat off his face with a hand towel and fixed his hair. Standing up, he stretched before donning his gear. His arms slid in the sleeves of his leather jacket smoothly and he straightened it. Bending down, he strapped his pouch securely on his leg and tightened the laces of his boots. Once finished, the blonde sighed and looked at his father's statue, imposing and intimidating as ever. "So, Zeus," he paused, Unsure of what to say, I gotta admit, out of all the gods and goddesses I expected to be my parent, I never thought it would be you. He ran a hand through his hair. I mean, I didn't expect me, Naruto Uzumaki, a no-named orphan and outcast, to be the son of Zeus, the king of gods himself. He gained a frown. Why wasn't I told you were my father when I was with Thalia, my half-sister no less? The blonde sighed. I don't know what you want from me, or if I need to do something. I mean, from what I hear, it takes a while for kids to get claimed, so. Thanks for claiming me. He didn't know what to think about his claiming honestly. He already heard how unlucky it was to be left unclaimed, to not know who their parents were. And he understood the feeling of being abandoned. Though, he was sure as hell that Zeus had an ulterior motive for claiming him this early. It had to connect with the dreams and visions he started having. All of it would often involve an eagle and a horse. Two sacred animals that belonged to his sire and uncle, and the dream would usually depict them fighting. A look of realization dawned on the blonde. They were fighting over something. The question was why? There had to be a reason his father and uncle were fighting, an argument perhaps. A spat? Or maybe something was stolen. A knock on the door interrupted his musings. After opening the massive door to his cabin, and the unexpected visitor was Annabeth, who had a look of concern on her face. Is something wrong? She asked with worry at the look on the taller blonde's face. Naruto shook his head. Nah, just thinking is all. He leaned on the doorway. So, what's up, Annie-chan? Annabeth grew red when she heard the affectionate suffix he gave her. She moved a bang behind her ear as she shifted nervously. I just wanted to tell you that it's almost breakfast is all. The girl said, inwardly hitting herself for stuttering. Naruto nodded and the two made their way towards the direction everyone else was going. Annabeth sat at her own table with the rest of her siblings at table 6, while Naruto sat at his own table, table 1, which was near the entrance of the pavilion. They marched up the hill to the mess hall's pavilion. Satyr joined the campers from the meadow. Naiads emerged from the canoeing lake. A few dryads coming out of trees, joining the demigods. At the pavilion, torches left snuffed out were around the marble columns. A central fire burned in a bronze brazier the size of a tub. Each cabin had its own table, covered in white cloth trimmed in purple. 3 of the tables were empty, though cabin 11's was way overcrowded. Naruto snickered slightly at the sight of Percy having to squeeze on the edge of a bench. That had to be uncomfortable. And himself? Well, he sat at his own large table, all alone. He didn't know if he should consider himself lucky or not. He saw Grover sitting at table 12 with Mr. D, a few satyrs, and a pair of plump blonde boys who looked just like the camp director. Chiron stood to one side, the picnic table being way too small for a centaur. Clarice sat in front of the Ares table, laughing and belching right alongside her friends and siblings. Naruto scrunched his nose at the way they ate. An image popped in his mind. That of a boy the same age as him with red hair and green eyes, wearing skin-tight long-sleeved yellow suit with a red lighting bolt on the center and red jeans, eating in the same manner as the children of war, only faster. Stuffing his face with tacos mixed with pizza of all kinds. Naruto cringed with disgust, and forced the image out of his head. Note to self, never sit next to Wally next time we eat. Wood nymphs came forward with platters of food, grapes, apples, strawberries, cheese, fresh bread, and barbecue. Naruto loaded up his plate with a steaming bowl of ramen, and grinned before he dug in, moderately eating his bowl. After breakfast, the campers separated and went to their daily activities. Naruto himself having a schedule given to him by Chiron after eating. He first took ancient Greek from Annabeth with Percy, though Annabeth would keep sending him weird looks all the time and her cheeks would turn red whenever he looked at her, and would turn away. He got confused when Percy would give him disappointing looks and head shakes. For the rest of the day, he would rotate through outdoor activities, looking for something he was good at. Chiron tried to teach him archery, which he was a natural at, his skill with the bow being enhanced thanks to years of practicing. Chiron looked quite pleased at that. Foot racing? He was good at that too. Leaving the wood nymph instructors in the dust. They were quite mad. Having centuries of practice running away from lovesick gods, yet, he was faster than them. And wrestling? Yep, good at that too. The first time he got on the mat, Clarice would challenge him and lose. And would call the blonde in many offensive names. It was second nature to him, having to go out at night and playing vigilante, fighting crooks, and sums alike back in Richmond. So he had the upper hand in experience and training. That could not be said for Percy, however, who, in his defense, did try his best, but ultimately got suplexed by an angry Clarice. He also tried canoeing along with Percy. It wasn't really his thing, and it seemed the lake had it out for him when his canoe almost flipped upside down 3 times. Though Percy excelled in it, the boy finally finding something he was good at. The senior campers and counselors were impressed, finding the son of Zeus a good addition to Camp Half-Blood. But were still trying to figure out who Percy's godly parent was. Despite all that, the camp was enjoyable. Having gotten used to the smell of strawberry fields in the afternoon, sweaty kids fighting everywhere, even the Aphrodite cabin girls who constantly try to flirt with him all the time, but Annabeth would usually drive them away with a huff. Afternoon, just hours away from capture the flag. It was time for both Naruto and Percy's first sword fighting lesson since they made to camp. Cabin 11 gathered in the big circular area, where Luke would be the instructor. Both started with basic stabbing and slashing, using straw-stuffed dummies in Greek armor. The son of Zeus did it perfectly, whereas Percy slashed wildly, whopping his sword during his turn, imagining his less-than-stellar stepfather as the dummy. The lesson moved on to dueling pairs. A random son of Hermes, Travis the son of Zeus remembered, became Percy's partner and quickly beat the green-eyed boy. Percy groaned on the floor and blearily opened his eyes, and saw a gloved hand that belonged the Sky Child. He grabbed the offered appendage and stood up with the help of the blonde. "Thanks." The black-haired boy massaged his back as he held onto his sword before walking back into the crowd. Luke announced that he would be Naruto's partner, since this was my first time. As he approached the son of Hermes, one camper whispered to him, "Good luck," he said. "Luke's the best swordsman in the last 300 years. That's gonna change." Naruto muttered. Through the crowd, Annabeth watched the oncoming duel with a worried look on her face, watching 2 of her friends stared at each other. Naruto saw this, and flashed her a charming smile, his electric blue eyes shining in confidence. He quickly looked back at Luke, who readied his sword, and he himself took a kunai from his pouch, went into a stance, and focused on the older blonde, missing Annabeth's blush. "Well," Luke smirked. "Let's get started." Naruto nodded. He was confident he would beat him. Then both charged at each other. Luke showered him with thrusts, parries, and shield blocks, but the son of Zeus would dodge every strike and retaliate with a more aggressive attack. He had to admit Luke was really good with a sword and shield, but he faced people who made the son of Hermes a toddler in comparison. The image of a man in orange and black armor and mask which only had one eye hole that exposed one calculating and deadly gray eye appeared in his mind. Focus. Naruto blinked and sidestepped a thrust aimed his way before using his arm to block a shield bash from Luke. The Sky Child quickly used his arm that blocked the son of Hermes' shield and forcefully shoved it away from Luke's chest. He slashed at him with speed and ferocity that forced Luke to stumble back. The younger blonde took the advantage and lunged at him. He got closer to him and slashed quickly. The son of Zeus lunged once more, but the older blonde brought his shield up just in time. "Good job, Naruto, you've really grown these past 6 years," Luke praised. Naruto didn't answer, kicking Luke's leg, which caught him by surprise. The blonde kicked the center of the son of Hermes' chest before striking him in the abdomen with a palm strike. Luke stood there, dazed, and Naruto ran to him and kicked the shield away from the older blonde and sending him backwards. The bronze shield landed on the dusty ground. Both blondes charged and met at a standstill, their forearms wrestling for dominance as both glared at each other. "Give up," Luke shouted, gritting his teeth. "I'm standing my ground," Naruto growled. The crowd cheered, one side for the son of Zeus, while the other cheered for the son of Hermes. Naruto narrowed his eyes and his arm sparked before a static charge was released. Literally shocking Luke, causing him to lose the clash, Naruto sent a hard right towards Luke's face and a powerful kick in the stomach, sending the older blonde towards the ground. The crowd went silent as Luke landed with a thud and lied there. Naruto quickly came to the older blonde side with a look of regret on his face. "Sorry," he apologized. Luke sat up, seeming to be too shocked to speak. "Sorry." His scarred face broke into a grin. "By the gods, why are you sorry? This is great. You're a natural with weapons, Naruto." The other campers nodded with agreement and looked at the son of Zeus with newfound respect. Percy especially. It was evening, getting ever so close to capture the flag. Naruto was found sitting next to Annabeth at the lake, resting from wall climbing. The blonde was used to scaling walls, and it helped that Annabeth was there to help him out. "You did pretty well for the first time you ever tried climbing the wall. Almost all first-timers usually end up getting burned," she praised him. Naruto shrugged. I'm used to it, Tabia." Annabeth looked at him weirdly. "You scaled a wall before?" she questioned. The Sky Child avoided the girl's eyes as he shifted nervously. He tried to come up with a reason. The daughter of Athena recognized the look on Naruto's face and sent him a look. "Naruto," she warned. "What did you do before you came here?" Naruto sighed. "I became a vigilante back at Richmond," he murmured just loud enough for Annabeth to hear. "What?" Annabeth put her hands on her hips and glared at the son of Zeus. "So you mean to tell me that, for 6 years, you've been running around Richmond playing hero and saving damsels in distress?" She sighed. "What did you even call yourself?" Naruto grinned and jabbed a thumb towards his chest. "I'm Red Hood," he declared proudly. "Taking down scumbags and serving justice," the son of Zeus said cheesily, like how heroes would say it back in the 90s. Annabeth stared at him before giggling and scooted closer. "I guess I should have seen you playing vigilante coming." The two went silent as they enjoyed the scenery. It was finally time, Naruto thought excitedly. Well, there was more excitement than usual. It was time for capture the flag. When the plates cleared away, the familiar sound of the conch horn rang out and everyone stood at their tables. Campers yell and cheer as Annabeth and 2 of her half-siblings run into the pavilion carrying a silk banner. It was nearly 10 feet long, glistening gray, with a painting of an owl above some tree. From the opposite side of the pavilion, Clarice and her siblings ran with another banner of identical size, but red, painted with a bloody spear and a boar's head. Percy turned to Luke and yelled, "Does Ares and Athena always lead the teams?" "Not always," he replied. "Most often. Plus, it is more interesting. Athena, the goddess of wisdom and war, versus Ares, the god of war, would be pretty cool to see fight." Percy nodded. Whose side are we on?" "Athena's, for a while. We chose to be allies for a couple of months. You and Naruto are going to be great help." The teams were announced. Athena made an alliance with Zeus, Apollo, and Hermes, 2 of the biggest cabins and what some saw as their ace in the hole, considering that the son of Zeus seemed to show skill. Privileges had been traded: shower times, chore schedules, the best slots for activities in order to win support from other cabins. Ares had allied themselves with everybody else: Dionysus, Demeter, Aphrodite, and Hephaestus. From what Percy had seen, Dionysus's kids were actually good athletes, but there were only 2 of them. Demeter's kids had the edge with their skills in nature and outdoor stuff, but they weren't very aggressive, unless you got on their bad side. From the Aphrodite campers, he didn't have to worry too much. They mostly sat out every activity and checked their reflections in the lake, did their hair and gossiped. Hephaestus' kids were rough looking, and there were only 4 of them, but they were big and burly from working in the metal shop all day. They might be a problem. That, of course, left Ares' cabin, a dozen of the biggest, ugliest, meanest kids he'd ever seen. Chiron hammered his hoof on the marble. "Heroes," he announced. "You know the rules, the creek is the boundary line. The entire forest is fair game. All magic items are allowed. The banner must be prominently displayed, and have no more than 2 guards. Prisoners may be disarmed, but not to be bound or gagged. No killing or maiming is allowed. I will serve as referee and battlefield medic. Arm yourselves." He spread his hands, and the tables were suddenly covered with various equipment, ranging from helmets, bronze swords, spears, and ox-hide shields coated in metal. Naruto didn't glance at the armor spread out, and simply took a blue headband and tied it to his arm before putting his hood on. Just as he was about to pull out 2 kunais, a heavenly voice stopped him. "Check the table." The voice was authoritative and imposing. When the blonde looked back over the table, everything looked the same before a pair of gauntlets shimmered on the table. They looked to be the same design of the gauntlets he had now, only these were made out of bronze and had the lightning bolt symbol engraved on each gauntlet. Black, fingerless gloves attached to the bronze gauntlets. "Zeus?" the blonde questioned in his mind. "Touch them," the voice commanded him, and he listened, although warily. Replacing his old gauntlets with the engraved ones, he fastened the straps. "So, what now?" Naruto asked. "Think of a weapon," the voice said, and Naruto listened, closing his eyes in concentration. He quickly thought of a weapon. The gauntlets glowed blue before turning into twin bronze blades with hooked sides, and had a guard that covered the front of the hilt that ended in a sharp edge and intricate patterns on the flat side of the blades. The blonde stared in amazement as he inspected it. "Use them wisely," the voice stated. Naruto thought on how to change back to the gauntlets. As soon as he thought of it, they glowed before turning back to normal. He looked up at the sky, before cracking a smile. "Thanks, Zeus." He ran back to the rest of the blue team, and the son of Zeus almost laughed at the sight before him. Percy had a shield that was the size of a large sign, with a big caduceus in the middle, and looked like he could barely lift it. He had a helmet, like all the helmets on Athena's side, which had a blue horsehair plume on top. The blonde somehow managed to stop his laughter before running back to Annabeth and marched alongside her. "Anything I should worry about?" he asked her. She shook her head. "I would have warned you about Clarissa's spear, but since you're a son of Zeus, you're going to be fine. We'll take the banner from Ares. Has Luke told you your job?" "Guard the border so that Clarisse and her buddies come and attack me while you guys get the flag," he said confidently. She looked at Naruto in shock. "He told you that?" "No, he told me to guard the border. I figured out the rest," he said, before grabbing Percy by the collar and dragging the boy with him, despite Percy's protests. Annabeth shot him a confused look. "What are you doing?" "Figured that Clarisse would be aiming for the both of us since we did piss her off. I'll bring Percy with me so that she and her buddies have their attention on us." The daughter of Athena opened her mouth, before closing it. "That actually sounds good. Are you still going through with it?" she asked uneasily. Naruto nodded and looked at Percy. You get the plan. Percy nodded his head. Why ye guard the border and use ourselves as bait? The blonde shrugged. Pretty much. With that, they both push ahead. They had a game to win. The conch horn blew. Whoops were heard as blue team raced into the woods. It didn't take long for the three demigods to meet the opposition, coming across three kids of Ares first. Luke acted fast, knocking one kid out quickly. The second went down by the son of Zeus' hand, who used his newly acquired weapon, ducking under the child of Ares' swing and elbowed him right in the temple. The dazed war child retaliated by slashing at him, only for his sword to meet twin bronze blades in block that resembled an X. With a yell, Naruto forcefully broke the son of war's guard before a slash to the abdomen brought the child of Ares down. Mark. The third one cried out. With an enraged roar, he charged at the whiskered blonde, intent on avenging his unconscious brother. Naruto's swords changed back to gauntlets and he took out two kunai and flipped the small weapons in a reverse grip, lightning dancing on the small blades. The Sky Child lunged at the incoming Child of War and dodged a punch before striking the third one 2 times, electrocuting the boy. Grabbing the stunned son of Ares on the shoulders, he switched their positions and kicked him on the back, which sent him to Percy's direction. Percy. Now's your chance. Naruto called out. The green-eyed boy nodded firmly and went into a stance that he remembered Luke teaching him. The war child tried to hit Percy with his sword, only for Percy to dodge and bash the son of war with his shield, and slashing him with his sword. As the third one hit the ground, sounds of footsteps hit the three demigods' ears and the three looked at the right side. 5 or 7 demigods of the opposing team that ranged from Demeter to Ares surrounded Naruto, Percy, and Luke with their weapons readied. But just as the opposing demigods moved to attack, arrows suddenly came flying out of nowhere, hitting the opposing team. Naruto turned his head to a bush just a distance away. The bushes rustled, and kids from the Apollo cabin popped out of the bushes while other Apollo kids came out of their hiding spots behind the trees, all of them holding bows. The son of Zeus looked at one of the Apollo children in particular who led the barrage, Will Solus, if he remembered correctly. Sending a thankful nod to the son of Apollo. Will smiled in return before he and his siblings scattered, hunting down more of the opposing team. Let's get a move on. Luke ordered as they continued through the woods as yells and clangs of metal could be heard all around. The three moved further into enemy territory. It was only minutes before another group started to chase them as they headed to the flag. Percy panted as he ran. It was bad enough that the slightly bigger armor was weighing him down a bit, but he had to keep an eye on both the ground and the front as to not lose Luke and Naruto. What do we do? He yelled out to the older demigod. Luke stayed silent as he planned for a strategy. I have an idea. Both heads snapped to the son of Zeus. Let's split up and meet at the flag. The son of Hermes glanced back at the group that was chasing them, before grimacing, and turned to Naruto. We can't. They're hot on our trail. If we split up now, they'll be able to get us. At this, Naruto smirked behind his helmet. Taking out a small, gray, pellet from his belt, the Sky Child held it out so his allies could see the small object. Don't worry, I'll cover our escape, though you may want to cover your mouth, he warned, before dropping the pellet. Hey. What gives? The group that chased the three demigods stared in confusion as thick, gray, smoke engulfed the area which blocked their vision. Luke and Percy quickly covered their mouths, hearing violent coughing from behind. Meet you at the flag. Both heard Naruto say, before the three split into different directions. Get the airhead. Naruto smirked as a part of the group that avoided the pellet chased after him, most likely seeing him as a bigger threat. He threw random shurikens at the direction of his pursuers and ducked behind a particularly large tree. Where'd he go? One asked, only to get shrugs in response. Find him. He must be lurking around here somewhere. The others nodded at the order and fanned out to search the area. missing the shadowy figure on top of the tree that was in the middle of the path. The son of Zeus crouched down on one knee on top of a tree branch that was strong enough to hold his weight as he surveyed and observed where the opposing demigods were. One demigod approached the bushes and inspected the shrubbery. After a few minutes of searching, he shrugged and prepared to release the bush to find more spots that the son of Zeus could have hid. Only for a gloved hand to shoot up from the bush and grab him by the face, muffling his startled scream, and pulled him inside the bush. Naruto grabbed the struggling demigod in a chokehold and elbowed him on the back of his neck, instantly knocking out the boy in one swift motion. A son of Ares whapped at a few bushes to clear his path, having strayed from the others to find the Sky Child. Just a few feet away from the original area where the son of Zeus disappeared. He grunted and destroyed one more bush only to end up meeting a tree. The war child growled frustratingly and turned around, grumbling as he did. Rustle from nearby shrubbery alerted the son of war, who immediately took out his sword and pointed at the direction. "Who's there?" he shouted. Another rustle from behind made the son of Ares to turn around and glare at that direction. "Answer me." "Silence." He seethed. "Show yourself, you coward," the boy demanded. He backed up in wariness, before hitting the tree from before, startling him a bit. The son of Ares gave a small yell of surprise, not loud enough for anyone to hear, and glared at the tree. "Stupid tree," he grumbled, and started to walk back to his group. Never noticing a figure that appeared upside down from a rope, before it was too late, and the son of Ares' scream rang out. The last two demigods snapped their heads at the direction of the sound. "Joshua?" one asked hesitantly, and the two walked towards the direction of where the sound originated. Weapons at the ready, the two demigods approached the path where the son of Ares took, lightly stumbling at a few rocks here and there. Joshua, where are you?" the first one called out, his hands slightly trembling. Both backed up and eventually hit something, or rather, someone. The two demigods slowly looked up at what they crashed into at fear. It was the son of Ares, who was bound by the feet and was dangling off a rope that was tied to the tree, his face having one bruise that was already starting to swell. His head barely inches above the ground. The two opposing demigods didn't had a chance to scream before their heads were forcefully collided and sent them to the land of Morpheus. As the two demigods fall down to the ground, Naruto didn't waste any time and dashed back in the direction of where the flag should be. He made it to the flag, and saw two kids guarding it. A daughter of Demeter and a son of Ares. The girl held a sword and shield, whereas the son of Ares held a spear. Both looked vigilant, their shoulders tense and their bodies already in a stance. He crept silently, his footsteps barely making a sound, taking out a shuriken and aimed for the daughter of Demeter. The shuriken sped towards the girl and nailed her right in the head, knocking her out cold instantly. The son of Ares gave out a startled shout, and twirled around before snarling at the Sky Child, and charged at him with his spear. Naruto easily sidestepped the attack and his gauntlets changed into his twin blades. The blonde immediately went on the offensive, forcing the son of Ares to go to the defensive. Naruto swung his blades at the spear-wielding boy and broke his guard. The war child quickly recovered and sent a right hook only for it to be blocked. The child of Zeus kicked the child of war in the stomach, making him double over. Before cracking the boy on the face, the son of Ares retaliated and thrusted his spear, but the blonde was too quick and dodged the thrust with ease. The son of Zeus brought one of his twin blades down on the spear and held it there. The war child snarled and kicked the blonde, forcing distance between them. With a cry, the son of Ares charged at the blonde once more. Naruto crouched midway as the war child neared him. Just as he was a few inches away, the son of Zeus jumped over the boy and watched as the son of war meet face to trunk with a tree. Naruto snickered slightly as the boy dropped his spear and slumped down, his face still on the tree. That never failed to crack him up. He started to head back to the flag before Luke, followed by his siblings and a few of Apollo's children, busted through the woods and saw the son of Zeus. Blue eyes met and a silent challenge was made. Without a moment's notice, both Naruto and Luke rushed for the flag. The son of Hermes seemed to gain the upper hand due to his longer legs and years of training. Naruto smirked at this and planted his hands on the ground, much to Luke's confusion, and did a front flip, which started a chain of various acrobatic and complicated flips. Naruto snagged the flag a millisecond before Luke and held the long red cloth in victory. "Looks like I win this time," he boasted proudly. Luke looked at the younger blonde and just knew he had a cheeky grin underneath his mask. The son of Hermes rolled his eyes playfully. "Fine. I'll give you this victory, you earned it," he answered. "Let's go," he ordered, and the group started to run. Soon after they ran, the Hephaestus kids, who had been actually tailing Luke's group for some time, chased after them as the son of Zeus held the flag. Halfway to the creek, Naruto pulled the flag away from Luke when he noticed the older blonde attempting to snatch it. "Seriously?" Luke only shrugged in response. "I'm a son of Hermes, it's in my blood," he defended. Naruto narrowed his eyes when he glanced back at the relentless demigods chasing after them. He started running faster, vaulting and flipping over various stumps even as he held the banner. "A trick," Naruto heard and saw Clarice on the ground nearby, holding a broken spear with Percy a few feet away from the brutish girl. She was clearly pissed about something. It was a trick. Despite this, the whiskered boy continued and stopped in friendly territory, skidding to a stop. The rest of the blue team saw him, and exploded into cheers. They'd won, the evidence being that the red banner shimmered and turned gold. The boar and spear replaced with a large lightning bolt, an obvious symbol for Cabin 1. Naruto gave out a surprised yell when his teammates picked him up. "The hell?" he squawked as they carried him around their shoulders, cheering all the way. Chiron galloped out from the woods just as they finished their parade, and let the blonde blow the conch horn. The game was over. They won. Naruto removed his helmet and looked around the cheering campers and smiled along with them. "Naruto." The blonde steadied himself as he caught Annabeth, whose arms wrapped around him in a tight embrace. The girl pulled away and the child of Zeus saw a bright smile on her face as she clung to him. "We won," she shouted excitedly. Naruto chuckled. "Yep, we sure did, Annie-chan." Annabeth smiled, before she realized what she was doing and quickly let go of the boy, her cheeks burning as she did. "Naruto." The blonde turned once again when he heard his name and saw Percy, who oddly looked fine, run up to him with a smile on his face. "Just wanted to say congrats on winning the game," he praised. The son of Zeus smiled back, a bit embarrassed. "We wouldn't have won if you weren't there, Percy," he said. Percy rubbed the back of his neck sheepishly, looking down. "It's nothing, really." He trailed off. The blonde only chuckled. "If it weren't for you, Clarice would have tried to stop me from getting the flag. So you really helped us back there." Before Percy could respond, the group carried Naruto once again and started to do another rotation. After 5 minutes, the impromptu rotation stopped, and Naruto stood among the many cheering campers, enjoying the festivities. Until a howl ripped through the forest, and the cheering instantly died down. Chiron shouted something in Greek, which translated to "stand ready." "My bow." The blonde saw Annabeth drawing her sword as Percy looked confused while in the direction of the howl. On the rocks, just above them, was a feral hellhound, its lava-red eyes glaring menacingly, looking straight at Percy. Naruto reached a hand out as Annabeth yelled for Percy to run. Too late. He watched hopelessly, as he saw Percy get shredded through, leaving the boy in a bloody mess. It snarled before swiveled around, locking sights on him. It let out another howl, before charging at the son of Zeus. He had to something. Anything. Wait. Naruto looked back at his gauntlets, the words of his sire going back to him. Think of a weapon. The blonde concentrated. He needed a ranged weapon, any ranged weapon. Think. Uzumaki. Think of a ranged weapon. Naruto snapped his eyes open in realization. Wait. The hellhound leapt at him before the sound of a metallic crack filled the air. And the hellhound was sent flying, before dissolving into golden dust. The campers turned their heads to the direction of the sound. Naruto stood there, his arms outstretched, holding twin bronze pistols that had lightning bolts on each gun, the barrels smoking slightly. The son of Zeus noticed this, and the pistols quickly reverted back to his gauntlets. "The immortals!" Annabeth exclaimed, looking pale. "That was a hellhound from the fields of punishment. They're not supposed to." "Someone summoned it," Chiron said, his voice rumbling. "Someone inside camp." Luke came over, worry on his face. "It's all Percy's fault. Percy summoned it." Clarice yelled angrily. "Be quiet, child," Chiron coldly told the girl. "You're wounded," Annabeth looked at Percy. "Quick, get in the water." "I'm okay," Percy croaked out. "No, you're not," Annabeth argued sternly. "Chiron, watch this," she urged the trainer. Percy, with the help of Naruto, stood and the son of Zeus helped him to the creek. The camp surrounding the black-haired boy. Instantly, the cuts on his chest were closing up. Some of the campers gasped. Naruto blinked in surprise, before another unsavory image popped in his head, but forced it away. He did not want to remember that experience. The Sky Child looked up when something appeared above Percy's head and his eyes widened. This wasn't good. "Look, I don't know why," Percy tried to apologize. "I'm sorry." Though they weren't staring at his healing wounds, no, they were staring at something above his head. "Percy," Annabeth started, pointing above his head, By the time he looked up, the sign was already fading, but he could make out the hologram of green light, gleaming, and spinning. A three-tipped spear. A trident. "Your father," Annabeth muttered, looking back and forth between him and Naruto. "This is really not good." "It is determined," Chiron announced. All around Percy, campers started kneeling, even the Ares cabin, though they didn't look happy about it. Naruto knelt as well. "My father." "Poseidon," Chiron answered, "Earthsaker, Stormbringer, father of horses. Hail. Perseus Jackson, son of the sea god." He felt it. It was like acid. Acid that ripped his skin apart like he was made out of paper, tearing at the seams. He felt it seep in and gets into his eyes and lungs. He felt everything. Everything all at once, and it was too much. Gods. It was too much. It hurt, his stomach twisted and churned, knots forming. He felt his soul, his spirit, everything escaping from the underworld and Hades' grasp, forcing him back from the dead. The pain was unbearable, whispers from the damned reached his ears, telling him to hurt, maim, harm, kill. He wanted to scream, but he couldn't. He felt submerged, drowning endlessly in something he couldn't see. He reached his hand upwards to get back to the surface, clawing in the acidic-like liquid he was trapped in, struggling relentlessly to stop the torture he was in. Finally, for what felt like eternity, he felt his hand shot up from the green water and cool air tingling his skin. A hand grabbed his arm, and pulled him out, exposing all of his body into the cool air. He coughed and hacked as he laid on the cold, stone ground, feeling someone laying him on their lap, slim hands holding his back and legs in an attempt to make him comfortable. Despite the pain, he opened his eyes. And blue eyes met green. Long, brown hair cascaded down a beautiful face was the first thing he saw aside from her green eyes. He tried to speak, but the woman shushed him gently as her fingers raked his blonde hair soothingly, like a mother would to a child. "Do not talk, rest," the woman instructed, her voice soft yet firm. And rest he did. The next morning, Percy was moved to cabin 3 by Chiron. That meant he didn't have to share with anybody. He had plenty of room for his stuff, just one set of clothes and toiletries. He got to sit at his own dinner table, pick all of his activities, call lights out whenever he felt like it, and not listen to anybody else. Simply put, he was miserable. Just when he started to feel accepted, to feel that he had a home in cabin 11 and he might be a normal kid, he'd been cut out as if he was the plague. Nobody mentioned the hellhound, though the son of Poseidon had a slight suspicion that they were all talking about it behind his back. The attack scared everybody. That made him realize, he was the son of the sea god, and that monsters would stop at nothing to kill him, just like with Naruto. Going as far as invading camp, a place that was always considered safe for demigods. For the first day with Naruto, nothing had happened, so everyone thought it was okay, but with that hellhound, everything had changed. At least his cousin, yes, he had a cousin now, had a few people like Luke from Hermes, Will from Apollo along with some of his siblings, and Annabeth. He had only one, since the other campers steered clear from him as much as possible. Annabeth still taught him Greek, but she seemed distracted. Every time he said something wrong, she would scowl at him, as if he offended her or something, then they would argue back and forth. It got so bad that Naruto had to actually be the voice of reason and had to calm both of them down. He was honestly a little put out that she was way more friendly to Naruto, but the black-haired boy shrugged it off. He wasn't the one with an obvious crush on the son of Zeus. How Naruto didn't see the signs, Percy didn't know. Seriously. He couldn't be that dense. Cabin 11 was too nervous to have sword class with Naruto after what he did to the Ares kids in the woods, so his lessons became Luke teaching just him and Percy, who now joined them. He pushed the two of them harder than ever and was pretty tough on Percy too, even though he was a complete newbie, and he wasn't afraid to bruise the two up in the process. As he worked on his reps and warm-up, Percy peered to the side, seeing Luke placing Naruto in front of a set of straw-stuffed dummies in Greek armor similar to the way they practiced before. He watched as Luke got him started with advanced techniques in stabbing and slashing. He did it with ease and perfection, as if he'd done it before. And to be honest, Percy was kinda envious with how his cousin was already advancing faster than him. But it was to be expected, Percy mused. Despite how short they've known each other, Percy could see that Naruto had done this kind of thing before, and probably mastered it. He'd seen the way the blonde hit and fight. Although the son of Poseidon was rather poor when it came to intelligence, Percy was a bit proud to say that he was at least battle smart, which he found out when he studied Naruto during Capture the Flag. His body screamed that he was angry, but Naruto held it back. Every flip and subtle movement Percy saw the son of Zeus do spoke volumes to him. Percy snapped out of his musings when he heard Luke call his name, and the black-haired boy quickly went to work on the straw-stuffed dummies. Soon after, the three moved on to sparring, and Percy was picked first, much to the boy's nervousness in facing the scarred blonde. "Don't die, Aqualad." Naruto's comment was not helping. They had 2 fast matches, and Percy lost the previous 2, currently moving to their third one. The son of Poseidon got his butt handed to him almost immediately once the 2 matches started, though Luke assured him that he just needed more practice. Currently, Percy barely dodged a thrust from Luke and used his shield to block a kick. The black-haired boy, in return, slashed at the scarred blonde, who blocked and sent Percy down with a rough shove. "Hua!" Naruto cheered from the sidelines, "Kick his ass." "Whose side are you even on?" Percy yelled as he evaded another slash from Luke. The one with the sword. Naruto grinned cheekily. Percy deadpanned, but yelped when he got knocked down and found a sword to his throat. You need to focus more, Percy, Luke advised as he got up and gave the younger boy a hand. I blame my ADHD. The son of Poseidon groaned, gratefully accepting the older boy's hand as he stood up, rubbing his back. We all do, but you need to overcome that if you want to get serious, Luke said seriously. Percy nodded weakly and walked towards the side. The son of Zeus patted his cousin's back with a grin. It's okay, Aqualad. You'll get it soon. Percy's eye twitched at his nickname. I hate you. Love ya too, cuss. With all my hate. On the inside, Percy smiled. Since the revelation of his sire, Naruto started spending most of his free time hanging out with him or Annabeth. At the time they spent training with each other made Percy question the son of Zeus. He explained that he was an orphan at birth, and he was an outcast at that, so when he found out that he had a cousin, he didn't waste time to get to know him. That made Percy feel better, knowing that he had someone there for him. It felt nice. Naruto laughed, before turning around and jogging towards the sparring space. Naruto looked down as he sat on his bed, fiddling with the black, pajama-looking clothing that the guards gave him. It was a few days after his resurrection. After the woman Talia took him under her care and filled him in. They managed to find his body in the rubble that was once a warehouse, and took him to what she called the Lazarus Pit. A pit that could actually resurrect, or prolong one's life. Something that Talia's father, Ra's al Ghul, used to ensure his youth, making him practically immortal. But, it didn't come without a side effect. Most who would use the pit would usually go insane, crazy, mad. And he felt them. Those who failed to get revived. Their whispers haunting him, urging him to kill the bastard who beat him with a crowbar and left him to die in a warehouse. The bastard that cut a bloody scathe through Richmond and did it with a smile. Naruto wanted to feel anger, any emotion really. But he couldn't. He was numb. Emotionless. Footsteps hit Naruto's ears as the door to his room opened. Talia came inside, followed quickly by a girl. Though, he didn't really look at her, focusing on his clothing. Sit. Talia quietly commanded the girl, gesturing towards the chair that faced Naruto. The girl didn't respond to the command as much as she did to the overwhelming need to get off of her feet. The boy hardly moved, his head looking down, his chest rising and falling, along with him fumbling with his clothing was the only signal that he was living still. His stillness pulled her in, she could feel his body screaming out that he didn't want to be here. It was that feeling of distress that made her sit in the chair. This is Naruto, he needs your help. Talia instructed. The words to attempt communication with the girl, though she knew it was futile. She couldn't speak and didn't know as much about language as she did people. It made her feel better, it made the whole situation seem more human. It made it a little less hopeless. The girl could hear Talia leave, but her attention was invested in this boy. She'd never seen anything like this, someone so alive but so emotionless. She glanced down at his hands that continued to hold the cloth of his outfit, and used her hand to hold both of his hands, and almost immediately, color flooded his cheeks. In a corner of the room, someone was observing the interaction and took notes on the change. It was the first they'd seen in him since he'd arrived. Since his resurrection, Naruto felt something in his chest. There was something about this girl that made him feel. All he could think about was how much he wanted to just be able to see her face, if he could just manage to turn his head. He stopped concentrating on this thought when he felt her fingers brush over his cheek. It was strange, he'd forgotten what this type of contact was like. Every now and then Talia had tried to hold him, but there was something missing. This felt genuine, it felt different. He wanted more of that feeling he got when she touched him. It made breathing a little easier. He was slowly becoming aware of his head turning towards her, guided by her hand. Another note was written down by the man at the corner of the room. He'd always either been too stiff, or was just generally blank and emotionless when someone touched him. He was surprised when he was able to look at her. He'd expected someone older than himself, another expert that Talia had sent to figure out how to fix him, not this girl. She was small, but around his age. He noticed little things like her lips at first and the way they curved in the middle. Her eyes gave away her background, but they were a warm brown rather than the muddy brown he was used to seeing. He scanned over what he could see of her and noticed a few wounds, scarred over and fresh. Her hair was jet black and framed her face. It strangely fit her. Beyond that, everything about her was soft and comforting to him. His eyes flashed back to the wounds and she could feel his distress over them. She was quicker to rest her hand on his arm this time. She knew it was the best way to let him know what's going on. It didn't seem to make him feel better. She sensed frustration and his body's screaming again. Emotionless. He couldn't feel anything. His breathing quickened. He felt suffocated. Panic rushed through her for a moment and she was afraid she'd lose him. She liked him, liked being able to converse with him. It made her feel a little less lonely, a little more relaxed. The last thing she wanted right now is to lose that so quickly. The girl moved her hand from his arm to the center of his chest, pressing down just a little. He moved his gaze from the wounds to her eyes again. His breathing slowed down and she smiled. They heard footsteps. Naruto found he couldn't move his eyes away from her. He didn't mind so much. She made him feel something. She knew they'd come to get her. Who knew how long she'd been here with this boy? She balled her fingers into a fist on his chest, slowly uncurling them, and hoped he understood. She would be back. Ready for this, Luke? Naruto asked with a smirk, his gauntlets shifting to his blades. At the other side, Luke held up his sword and shield before going into a stance. Ready if you are. Then the son of Hermes quickly moved. It was hard to tell how he knew, but something in his body told him it was time for the part of the day he actually looked forward to. Even though it had become routine, Naruto would experience a rush of something every time it happened. It being the point during the day when she would visit. He always felt something every second she was in that room with him. It was nice having someone who could understand him. Though she couldn't speak, he had a feeling she appreciated having someone who knew what she was trying to say. According to those observing them, their sessions were helping the two of them progress. Naruto didn't doubt their findings. But Naruto felt tense. Something was off. She should be here by now, right? Did something in her training went wrong? He felt his breathing quickening as one thought led to another. What if Roz decided he didn't need her anymore? His panicking ceased. What if Talia was keeping her from him? Naruto quickly stood up with one goal. Find her. He'd been outside of his room many times, for training and observation, but the hallways and doors looked entirely foreign to him. The layout was confusing and most of the doors were locked. He didn't really understand why anyone would need so many doors anyways. Despite this, he bumbled through the doors and hallway with slight desperation, a small and familiar, yet at the same time foreign, tightening in his chest. After what a few minutes of searching, he found himself in another hallway. This door was open. He rushed inside and almost toppled over in the rush. And he saw her. She was sitting on her bed, her back to the door, and looking out the window the bed was pressed against. He felt his body relax, the pain in his head dissipate. His feet were carrying him on their own, his mind somewhere else, until he dropped to the floor and sat down. His legs crossed and she turned slowly, sensing that someone was in the room. Her expression was calm, but her nose wrinkled the way it might if she were to laugh, and the way her eyes lit up made Naruto feel something. It was surprising that she didn't, considering him looking like a puppy who'd found his way home. Her feet quickly found the floor, and she soon sat down across from him. She took his hand and formed hers into a fist before pushing it into his palm. It was something quirky she did. If either of them could speak, he would ask her why she does it, but that wasn't possible or important. Naruto felt the corners of his mouth twitch. He felt a pang of emotion spread in his chest, though it didn't feel painful or tiring. It felt nice. She smiled in return and wriggled a bit in her spot, clearly excited. Warmth spread across his face and the feeling returned, but it was stronger. Standing by the doorway, Talia looked smug as she glanced at her father, smug that she'd proven the girl does actually help the boy progress. Roz watched the interaction silently, ignoring his daughter's face. Yes. This could work. Every now and again she would reach out to touch him or brush away the hair from his eyes. When she did, she'd run her fingers through his hair and tickle his scalp. He'd shudder, his nerves waking up. She saw something change in his eyes, disappointment. Instinctively she looked over her shoulder to see the sun falling slowly in the sky. The sun fell and always the two knew they would be separated again. In the morning they would wake. She would be off to another training session. He would also do his training and wait for the physicians to poke and prod him. He thought it was ridiculous that they were still around, but Talia seemed to think it was still necessary. His chest felt tight again. He didn't want to face whatever his sleeping mind was going to show him. The hideous grin and twisting, deranged purple eyes always stared back at him in his sleep. Naruto didn't know he was trembling, only when the girl silently pulled herself close to him, her head resting on his chest as he started to calm down. She placed her palm over his heart and curled it into a fist. He wondered for a moment why it was always the fist when they said hello or goodbye. He knew what she meant though. "I'll be back. You can get through this. I believe in you." Luke grunted, and dodged a thrust from Naruto. But he didn't notice the younger blonde's kick, which sent him skidding back a bit. Analyzing his movements told a lot, but not nearly as much as Luke wanted to know. He had been trained to fight by several people. He could see the imprints of various fighting styles that he had seen from modern martial arts to training the more militaristic children of Ares had before being sent to camp. Luke saw that Naruto had blended their styles and added he didn't know what to call it. There was control in his movements but also recklessness? Maybe that was it. Naruto didn't plan out his moves. Everything was done on instinct. Naturally, all demigods knew how to fight. It was in their blood to fight. It was natural. But this was more than instinct. Luke could see it in Naruto. He was angry. Luke had never seen so much anger and violence in a person. His anger drove him, consumed him, and made him strong. Yet, the son of Hermes could see that Naruto held back, a lot. There was no denying it. Naruto used his anger to deepen the blows and harden himself to those he fought, despite him holding back and pulling his punches. He was fast too. Every movement was a part of him. Just what did his pseudo-little brother do during those 6 years? Ever since Talia pulled her separation stunt on the two, it was decided that the best thing for everyone was not to disrupt the schedule that had been set for so long. The girl padded down the hallway for her usual visit to Naruto's room. It seemed this week Roz wanted to push her to her limits. Since she felt a bit more exhausted than her previous sessions. She felt like he was preparing her for something. But that didn't stop her. She still continued to Naruto's room. When she entered his room, she smiled. But her expression changed quickly. His bed was empty. She knew he was in no condition to leave his room. She found that out when guards told how the blonde boy seemed to push himself more in his training, just so that he could see her. But it seemed he bit more than he could chew, and was confined to his bed. Talia made sure of that. So she ran back down the hallway to find Talia, She would be the only other person who might know where he was. As she did, she stopped in front of a room that she hadn't taken the time to look at before. Talia was wrapping a type of headscarf around a boy's head. He was clothed in a long tunic and seemed rather rigid. She stood in the doorway, watching and trying to figure out what was going on. She watched as Talia hugged the blonde, as would a mother do to her son. "Oh, Naruto," Talia sighed, dropping her arms to her sides, "I know this idea is a little scary, but it's all I've got." The girl's eyes widened. She recognized the sound of his name. Talia had said it so many times to her that it was almost impossible not to associate his face with the sound. Talia turned, grabbing Naruto's wrist to lead him out of the room, and saw the girl. "Of course, you'd come looking for him." Talia pushed past her and the girl read everything she could within seconds. Talia was angry and determined, yet concerned, much like she had been the first time she brought the girl to see Naruto. The boy, on the other hand, was still emotionless and blank as ever, but she could see hints of confusion and nervousness. She made a quick decision to follow them, to make sure he'd be okay. They came to a room that both Naruto and the girl recognized. Well, they recognized the door anyways. It was grand and always locked. They were always steered away from it. Now, Talia was heading straight for it. When they entered, the air felt hot and dry and the walls looked like a mix between a cavern and a sacrificial chamber. A pool of glowing, sickish green liquid filled most of the room and seemed to be the source of heat. Naruto looked at the liquid with familiarity, but still his blank look remained. Talia had a look of regret as she put her hands on Naruto's shoulders. "I'm sorry," she muttered, and pushed him into the liquid. As if she had predicted the girl's next actions, Talia held her back with her hands. "This will be good for him, but I'm not so sure it'll help you." Talia's voice held a bit of pain as she continued to hold the struggling girl back. The girl watched in horror as Naruto sunk into the liquid once more, waiting to see if he rose again. It took time, but eventually he broke the surface, screaming in agony. The last thing she saw before Talia shut her from the room was his pained face. His emotions returned, but the screams and whispers of those who failed to be revived haunted him once again. It was months before she would see him again. She had improved greatly in her skills, but once training was over she would take her meals in her room or stare out the window by her bed. His pain still scratched its way to the front of her mind every day. Today was another training session. She didn't know why, but these sessions more or less started to irritate her. The various men and women who she sparred with were quickly beaten by her as if they were the child and she, the adult. Was Roz even trying anymore? Still, she made her way to the training ground, prepared for what the old man would throw at her. Her breathing quickened and her chest swelled in happiness when she saw who she was up against. "Hi." Naruto spoke quietly, his face no longer emotionless or dull, but filled with joy when he saw her. Her eyes widened, his voice was deep with a small rumble to it that seemed to come from his throat. "Still can't talk, huh?" He moved forward and sat down, cross-legged. She did the same as she took time to observe him better. She noticed he'd grown taller, more developed. He was so familiar but so different. "You've changed." He looked her up and down. She felt nervous around him now, his body was telling her what he was thinking. "You've grown up too." He looked frustrated as she sat down close to him, staring into his eyes, and trying to come to grips with the idea that he was the same boy burning in the pit. "Maybe I can try to teach you how to talk. I can't read you so well now." She liked the sound of his voice, it was soothing. His words sounded stressed though. "Can you say my name? You've heard it enough." Her face scrunched up, trying to understand him. "Naruto, can you say Naruto?" She smiled, she recognized that sound. That was what he was called. He pointed to her, trying to convey that she should try it out. She struggled, only able to say ah. Still he smiled, surprised to hear any sound come from her at all. He tried over and over again for her to get it, but even in pieces the vowels seemed to be the only thing she could get. He bit his lip and noticed how intently she watched his mouth, like she was trying to figure out how it made so many interesting sounds. Suddenly, he lit up, his whiskered cheeks going into a grin that made her feel warmth inside. "I've got it." He reached to take hold of her hands again, bringing them to his jaw and mouth. "Naruto." He spoke slowly, moving her fingers so that she could feel the way he made the word come out. "Naru." She spoke as slowly as he had, her nose wrinkled, not quite getting it. He squeezed her hands, lowering them to his chest and smiled. She smiled back, knowing she'd done something he liked. "That's pretty good actually." She traced her fingers over his lips. "Enough talking." He raised an eyebrow. Heat spread through his face the way it always did when she was around. "Your name's Cassandra, right?" he asked, his head tilting akin to that of a fox. She nodded silently. He grinned again. "You have a pretty name. Cassie-chan." She wriggled a bit as she smiled, lowering her hand to his chest and curling it into a fist. It was like those moments in his room again. Silent, but not quiet. He thought for a moment what that fist could mean now. Something told him though. "You're strong. You've made it." Both heard the gates to the side open, and the two quickly stood up and ran at the opposite direction before facing each other. Talia, along with her father and guards, filled the room and stood in the sidelines. "Are you two ready?" Naruto and Cassandra nodded, before they took a fighting stance. "Don't hold back, Cassie-chan." She smiled as he said her name. She didn't know why, but she liked the way he said it. They stared at each other. "Begin." As soon as Talia began the spar, Cassandra lunged. And Naruto blocked the punch Luke aimed his way. The son of Hermes was down a sword, and his shield was the only weapon he had. Luke attempted to bash his shield to Naruto's face, but the son of Zeus grabbed the edges of the shield with both of his hands and flipped over him. Luke growled and swiped at him with his shield only for Naruto to duck and send a hard uppercut to the chin. The scarred blonde was sent flying and landed on his rear. Naruto smirked. "Looks like I win." He boasted proudly as he helped the son of Hermes up. The older blonde rolled his eyes playfully. "Still got that cocky attitude I see." He countered. The Sky Child grinned. "You know it." "Yo. Percy, Naru." Grover called out as he walked towards the arena. Percy looked at Grover as he stretched. "You need something, Groves?" "Yeah, Mr. D wants to see you both."